Hey there, this is Mike from Mike Buys Houses. We were recently speaking with a homeowner this week, and she was inheriting a house with siblings. So she was just kind of looking to learn a little bit more about what she could expect and kind of what options she had. So the first thing that we talked about is that typically, unless stated otherwise, it's very common that the ownership is going to be distributed equally. So unless it's clearly defined in the will differently, then very commonly it's going to be distributed equally. And from that point, the siblings can then decide what to do with the house, whether that's to keep it and have one of the siblings live there or a family member live there, keep it as a rental, keep it as a vacation house, keep it as a vacation rental, fix it, and flip it, just list it, for sale by owner. There's a million different options. Um, but really, the thing to know is that typically it's going to be equally distributed ownership between all the siblings, and that will only be different if it's specifically laid out in the will. One of the things that we've seen often is that the best thing to do is to avoid court, because just going through the whole court system is going to cost more money, as far as dividing up the ownership and everything like that. And they're going to impose a mediator or what's known as a referee, and then when the court forces the sale of the house, there's going to be realtor fees on top of that, and then there may even need a requirement for an accountant at times. Court really imposes a lot of extra costs, where if you are planning on selling a property, then that can really impact the amount of money that you walk away with at the end of the sale. So definitely something to consider. We just try and say, like, if there's any disputes between siblings, try and work it out first yourselves, and then last resort would be going to court. Then some of the things that we talked about are some of the options when inheriting a property with siblings, and that's what we discussed here. So when inheriting a property with siblings, one of the things to determine is how the ownership is going to be maintained. We talked about typically it's going to be distributed equally, but depending on the will in your specific situation, it is possible there are that it would be different. So there's two ways really. One's called tenancy in common, which is that each owner possesses interest in the property, and it can be divided equally or unequally. So this would be if this was specifically laid out in the will for the property. And then at this point, each owner can do with their portion of ownership whatever they want. So if they want to sell that or transfer ownership, then they're able to do partitions of the property like that. Can be very difficult to get done, obviously, and doesn't really make sense for most situations for someone to sell 1/3 of the property. But it can make sense if the siblings are buying the other one's ownership, and then that way it can get done. Um, Otherwise, in joint tenancy is the other option, where all co-owners have equal amounts, and in order to sell the property, there needs to be consent of all parties. And this is probably the more common method that we see. And then from there, the options when inheriting a house with a sibling, like we mentioned earlier, you can keep it for family members to utilize, especially if it's paid off. This can be a good way to help someone in need in your family, or you can turn it into a rental property. We would definitely recommend working with property management if that's the case, and that's going to cost you about 10% a month of your rental income, and then 1 month's rent, typically when they place the tenant. So just some things to think about. And then the other options obviously are like vacation home, or renting it as a vacation home like an Airbnb. Again, we would recommend working with property management, and it's just a cost of doing business, so you're just going to have to factor that in when you're considering that. And then some of the other options, you could sell the property, either for sale by owner, list it with a realtor, or sell it to someone like us at Mike Buys Houses. What we do is we buy properties either cash or term, so we're able to help homeowners in all situations, whether the property's underwater or any situation really. We're able to help, and because we buy properties on terms, we're able to pay more than pretty much anyone else, so we are able to work with you in order to help you achieve your goals when selling the property. So if that's something you're interested in, then feel free to give us a call, 267-984-4765, or visit us at MikeBuysHousesPA.com. We look forward to helping you.